There, and welcome to Exit Stage Right. This is the show where we talk about ways that you can build, grow, and ultimately sell your business and exit stage right into your next big adventure when that time comes. I'm Martha Sullivan. I am the host of Exit Stage Right, and I am thrilled to have you join us here today. Yes, this is a show where we talk about the business of business and ways that you can set up your company and yourself for your best and brightest future. So, welcome to today's show. Today, I wanted to talk about the single most important reason why Miranda rights apply to when it comes time to sell your company. You know, I was thinking about it. I've watched my share of cop shows, and you probably have too. And you can probably recite the Miranda warning by heart by now, in terms of you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney, one will be provided for you. And do you understand the rights that I have just read to you? With these rights in mind, do you wish to speak to me? And in every cop show, they say, I want an attorney. Well, of course, this only applies, the Miranda warning only applies in situations when you're under arrest for potential criminal activity. Miranda warning actually came about back in 1963, interestingly enough, and it had to do with a rape case of a woman that was kidnapped and raped by a 24-year-old. His name was Ernesto Miranda. And the police, without much trouble, were able to track him down and without much difficulty at all, were able to get him to confess to the crime. Now, they actually brought Mr. Miranda in for a lineup, and the rape victim could not conclusively identify him. But he was cooperative in being brought in and for the lineup and things of that nature. And when after the lineup, he was talking with the officers, and he asked, you know, something along the lines of, well, how'd I do? And the cops basically said, well, not so good. She identified you, when in fact she had not identified him. And ultimately, this led him to sign a confession, a written confession that was actually corroborating the facts of the case as the victim had shared them. And when it went to court, he was ultimately convicted. But that confession was actually elicited from him without him having a full understanding of his legal rights. And ultimately, his attorney appealed to the Arizona Supreme Court. That appeal was denied, and eventually the ACLU picked up the case and took it to federal Supreme Court, saying that his Sixth Amendment rights, which is the right to representation, and his Fifth Amendment rights, which is against being compelled to be a witness against yourself, were violated. And the Supreme Court agreed. And that is actually where the Miranda rights came into play. And it was instituted, that warning was instituted almost immediately by law enforcement agencies throughout the country. I found that actually pretty interesting, but you're probably thinking, what the heck does it have to do with my business? What does it have to do with potentially selling my business? Well, it turns out actually it does apply. It really does apply. When it comes time to sell your company, you have the right to remain silent. And in fact, you have the right to representation, and you should get experienced reputation. Let me share with you a story of a business owner. I was at an owners forum recently where an individual represented himself in selling his company. And he had talked with a strategic buyer, somebody else that was in his industry. And they got to talking, and gee, wouldn't it be great? And ultimately, he got an offer, and he felt, yeah, the offer's fair, but you know what? I'm going to push him a little bit. I'm really going to, well, actually, I'm going to push him on the price, was his attitude. And so he asked for another $1 or $2 million. I don't remember whether it was $1 million or $2, but it was about that range on roughly a $30 million acquisition. And lo and behold, the buyer was more than happy. Yep, let's give him the extra $2 million and let's be done with it. Well, to me, as I'm listening to, and this guy was happy as a clam that he had been able to negotiate for a better price. And sitting in the audience myself, and I know there were other M&A professionals in the room, all sorts of bells and whistles were going off in our head in terms of the seller didn't have any real negotiating power in that opportunity. He didn't have anything to compare to. He didn't have any competing offers. He didn't have any leverage really in negotiating other than to say, hey, it's what I want. Will you give it to me? And they readily did. The fact that they readily did told me that really they were swooping in and getting a deal, and they knew it, and they were taking advantage of it. And so what really happened was, instead of getting maybe $1 million or two more, he probably left maybe 5 million, 10 million on the table, and didn't even realize it. But that's what happens when you don't go through a structured process. Sometimes it's called a controlled auction, where you have an M&A advisor helping you organize your buyers list, go out to the market all at once, have the prospective buyers express their interest in potentially buying the company by a certain deadline, and then narrowing the field down bit by bit. So if I've got 3 potential buyers that are interested in learning more and ultimately indicate their interest, I can play them off them. Well, this one's giving me my price, but this one doesn't want to give it all. He's giving me a little more, but it's on an earnout. Where this one is, maybe I can get you this much, but I'll give you 100% cash up front. You can start playing each one of those off one another in negotiating. And ultimately, when you invite them to make a bona fide offer through a letter of intent, they're putting their best foot forward and have really sharpened their pencils. What happens when you do it yourself is you can give away points of interest without even knowing it, and you cede control of the situation. You cede your leverage. I had another conversation with someone recently that was thinking about selling their business, and they asked me, "I'm going to a trade show soon. Should I be kind of testing the waters with some of my peers and people that I trust?" I'm like, "Time out, Green Bay. Do not do that. Don't tip your hand. Don't express how you're ready to get out or show vulnerability along those lines." Those individuals, while they may be your industry friends, when it comes to selling your company, they are not your friends. If they're on the other side as a buyer, they are not your friends. And you want to be very disciplined about what you tell them, and most importantly, when you tell them what you tell them. So that's why I was thinking about the Miranda rights. You do have the right to remain silent. You do have the right to representation. And I encourage you to do both. So that's really the tidbits of what I wanted to talk about today in terms of how the Miranda rights really do apply to selling your business. The other thing that I wanted to share with you today is that we will be starting up our Finding True Value workshop series in April. The first one starts on April 7th. This is a program where it runs across a period of time, 7 different workshops, about 2 hours in length, that are held once a month. And they do a deeper dive into what creates value in your company and how you can prepare yourself for that succession planning journey, in terms of how do you understand what the value is of your business, how do you grow value, how do you mitigate risk, and ultimately, how does that fit into your own personal plans, your own wealth management and retirement plans, financially as well as personally. What are you going to do after you get done with this adventure? What is your next adventure? So here on the slide, oops, darn it, didn't mean to do that. Here on this slide, you can see the QR code if you are at all interested in the Finding True Value workshop. Scan the QR code and check out the workshops, check out the other things on the Providence Hill website, and join us, sign up. We would love to have you as a part of this April's cohort. We only offer this workshop series once a year, so now's the time to act. So with that, thank you for joining us today, and visit us at the FBCG, the Family Business Consulting Group's website, or providencehill.com. We would love to see you there and look forward to our next conversation. I have a very good feeling about this. Please, please, please join us next time. But in the meantime, go forth and transform your business, because I do have a really good feeling about this. Shout me out 'cause I can't contain it.